American League had their games tonight. American League.
Yeah, yeah.
So she's not here, is she? No.
We work with three different places.
Can she come back? Tom, can she come back in May at our May one?
She probably could. I mean, that'll be right after her last day.
Tom,
She probably could and do something for her.
instead of just doing it while she's not here.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to call to order the regular town council meeting for Tuesday, April 16th. Our invocation is going to be delivered by Reverend Leon Brown, pastor of Moncks Corner Baptist Church.
Eternal wives, God, us again, we come to say thank you for this day. God, we thank you for your many blessings that bestowed upon us. Thank you, dear God, for the town of Moncks Corner and this official staff. We humbly ask now, God, you bless each of us together here this evening, that will be done to glory and honor your name. For we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. I need approval of the minutes for the regular meeting, March 19th, 2024. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Passes. Mayor's report. It's a busy month. On March 25th, the Moncks Corner Police Department held a social in honor of remembrance of fallen police officers, Corporal Marcus Stiles and Private First Class Lonnie Wells. The families came and had fellowship and told stories. It was a really nice event. And then on the 26th and 27th, Town Council had their planning retreat, so we discussed different things of the budget. Then 3/29, I was invited to do a food giveaway on Good Friday. It was a fun experience getting out and meeting people in the community. On 4/3, we had a ribbon cutting for a Father's Place. Councilperson Lloyd was present. That organization tries to bring fathers and help them transition to be better and present fathers. On 4/8, Berkeley County Council did a proclamation on Child Abuse Prevention Month. And on the 9th Mayor's Council meeting, I met with all the Tri-County mayors. And what we're trying to do is to leverage what we have to work together to try to get different projects to our area. And then on the 13th, I went to the Berkeley High School ROTC banquet where I presented the award for Cadet of the Year. Congratulations to Miss Mackenzie Ravenel. And on the 14th, I did a ribbon cutting for the renovation at Abiding Word Family Church. And then today we had the ribbon cutting for the Intensity Cheer Elite. That's over on Main Street across from Change Life Ministry. So welcome them. They come from 17A. Then for the future, we have, on the 18th, we have the Taste of Berkeley at Old Santee Canal Park. The 19th is Relay for Life, American Cancer Society at the Moncks Corner Regional Recreation Complex. Then May 2024 is National Tennis Month. I signed a proclamation in support and to bring awareness. The 7th of June, we're going to have jazz and art in the park from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and that'll be at Unity Park. And of course, I have talked and met with many of our citizens. They keep me on my toes. So now we'll go to the administrator's report. Mr. Lord? No, we're not doing that.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. I got a couple of things to cover with you. In your packet is a sheet that's got some highlighted road names on it. Just to let you know, there's several roads being paved around town, so I thought it'd be good to kind of catch you up. The first list are the ones that are under contract. Those are the ones that you should be seeing paved or will be paved under this contract currently led by SEDOT. I went through and tried to highlight all those that are in Moncks Corner and put the road name next to it so it'd be easier for you to find. The second list is a list of roads that is expected to be let this week by Berkeley County. Just going a little bit different because the first group of roads was let by DOT in 22, and they're, as you can see, just now doing it. So the CTC has asked the county to do the letting instead of going through DOT. Hopefully we can be maybe a little bit faster. We'll see. But so that kind of lets you know about what's pending. Council has any questions about that, I'd be more than happy to address it. They do have a new road scaling system that they've started implementing. They got a firm that comes in and they grade all the roads. So it's not as much as we think this road needs to be paved or this one needs to be paved. It's more of a ranking based on engineering review of the road. So it'll help inform the process as well. The other thing I want to tell you is that the last council meeting, you approved the low bid for doing the Whitesville and Jolly Bridge crossings. We did send that to Rural Infrastructure Authority for review. They have approved it, and they've authorized us to sign the contract, and they've given us a grant extension to get it done. So very good, very long process to have gotten through all the permitting on that. So very happy to be able to move that forward. Once bonds are in, contracts will be signed, and they'll be given the notice to proceed. So that project is moving forward. The council retreat, I do not have the report for you in here from the retreat yet, just because I haven't had time and the quick turnaround to be able to get it for you. I will have it for you at the next council meeting for you to look at and, of course, approve. And then the last thing I have before I turn it over to Chief Young was any questions before I turn it over to Chief Young that I can answer? Okay. All right, Chief Young is going to talk about some of the things that we're doing with regard to homelessness in Moncks Corner.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. The police department has partnered with Serve and Connect, Jeans Angels, the Hill Finkley Detention Center, 180 Place, and Pam Burnick with the Public Defender's Office to develop and implement a three-pronged approach to assisting people experiencing homelessness in Moncks Corner over the past year. The first prong has been focused on offering resources to the homeless. The second prong involves bolstering and adding to our current town ordinances while respecting constitutional rights. And the third prong helps homeless persons transitioning out of jail. Our victim advocate, Zelda Holmes, was designated as the police department's point of contact for offering resources related to people experiencing homelessness. Over the past year, Ms. Holmes has contacted and offered services to all identified homeless individuals in the town. As officers continue to encounter new homeless persons, they will continue to provide the opportunity to be connected with Ms. Holmes to explore resource opportunities. If the resources are desired, Ms. Holmes and Ms. Burnick are responding to the officer's location and they're meeting with the homeless person to offer those resources. The potential resource opportunities include but are not limited to access to drug and alcohol treatment programs, mental health assistance, transportation, legal assistance, help with getting driver's licenses and social security cards, and help finding shelter. Along with Serve and Connect, Ms. Holmes assisted Gene Angels when they hold events to provide people experiencing homelessness with access to food and showers, as well as providing washing machines and dryers to individuals so they can have clean clothing. This has also helped us identify and offer services to individuals not yet identified by the officers. Ms. Holmes and Lieutenant Merchant have also met with 180 Place in Charleston, and they're going to be bringing an outreach team to Berkeley County to contact all persons experiencing homelessness, again, to offer services. The 180 Place, they aid in obtaining housing, needed documents such as photo IDs and social security cards, employment and training opportunities. The proposed ordinances aim to address various community concerns while navigating legal and constitutional considerations. First, the amendment to the soliciting and panhandling ordinance seeks to mitigate aggressive begging behaviors while avoiding potential infringements on free speech, as seen in past legal challenges. Secondly, the camping ordinance streamlines the process of removing unauthorized campers from both private and public property, balancing the rights of property owners with the need to address property destruction and unauthorized occupation. Lastly, enhancements to the park and recreation ordinance include additional rules pertaining to certain activities in parks, along with the establishment of standardized park hours for improved safety and reduced vandalism in our parks. These measures also give our officers and our outreach cause to engage those experiencing homelessness. The Hill-Fickley Detention Center has assisted us in identifying homeless persons entering the detention facility and has allowed Ms. Holmes to identify those individuals that need assistance. Our resource plan has already shown results, and the new ordinances, along with the new partnership with 180 Place, will continue to enhance our ability to preserve the quality of life in Moncks Corner.
That concludes my report.
Okay. All right, so we'll go on to new business. First reading by title only, an ordinance to amend Chapter 22, Parks and Recreation of the Town of Moncks Corner, South Carolina Code of Ordinances. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Can we get some information on what this is?
Yes, sir. So the first ordinance regarding Parks and Recreation, and it has basically two different sections, or three. So the first one, it makes it so that people cannot sleep in our parks. We've had some issues with Lacey Park, sleeping under the shelter. So this makes it so that you can't sleep in a park. The other thing is it does set hours, and the hours we have in there now is from 10 at night to 7 in the morning. But it does give us the ability to post hours. So there are some activities at the basketball courts we're probably going to want to leave open, but still want to be able to have other parks closed. So we can just post those and notify those so that we don't have people spending the night in our parks. And the other one is regarding protesting and occupying public spaces. So our public parks don't become locations for protest.
Thank you.
On the, page 3 of that ordinance, we need to scratch out, it says guilty of A and then guilty of A again double.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
There you go.
Okay. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? First reading by title only, an ordinance to amend Chapter 20, Article 3, Offenses Against Property of the Town of Moncks Corner, South Carolina Code of Ordinances.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Or discussion, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got a motion and a second?
And discussion.
All right, so this is the camping ordinance, and so this makes it illegal to camp on somebody's property without their permission. It has lots of exceptions, so if you're camping with somebody, or if you have a note from the property owner saying they can camp here, and of course, if it meets all of our other, our other ordinances, but, it just allows us, because right now, there's campsites that pop up on absentee property owner, that could, be somebody who lives in another state, they don't know that there's campers on their property. This gives us the ability to go on our property and tell them, hey, first of all, do you have permission to be here? If not, then you can't do this, and then that's when we engage our representative to go out and talk to them about what their options are and try to find them a better place to be.
Thank you.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? It passes. First reading by title only, an ordinance to amend Chapter 10, Article 1, Section 10-1 and Section 10-9G, and adopt the language contained therein, all relating to peddlers, charitable solicitors, buskers, and panhandlers, and to repeal Chapter 20, Article 4, Section 20-107 in its entirety of the Town of Moncks Corner Code of Ordinances.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
All right, so this is the panhandling ordinance, and so right now you do have an ordinance that prohibits any panhandling, but it is out of date. Probably wouldn't stand up to constitutional scrutiny, because it really is, when the chief was talking about making sure that we're not infringing on people's First Amendment rights, and so people do have a right to do some things, it's just the town has a right to create regulations about how it can be done. And so your ordinance right now says it can't be done, which isn't sustainable, and so this lays out, what can be done. Like, you can't be aggressive, you can't, approach vehicles in the roadway, all those things that kind of would make it dangerous.
Thank you.
All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Passes. First reading by title only, consider a conditional zoning map amendment, CZ-24-01, request for one parcel, TMS 142-00-01-012, totaling 15.75 acres, located on Hetley Street from R2 Single Family Residential to CZ R2 Conditional Zoning Single Family Residential to allow up to 37 dwelling units. Do I have a motion?
I'm going to make a motion, but I'm going to have some discussion as well.
Okay. Second? And discussion?
Do you want to lead in to anything, or you just have
Yes,
questions?
sir. I think so. A little bit of context is important when you're considering this. The property is currently zoned R2. That allows for 30 dwelling units for the property. That's by right. That is not going to come in front of this board. Right now, the only thing staff is waiting on is some roadway design coordination with Berkeley County. So assuming we get that, the applicant can move forward by right with 30 units. Now, that's important because the request is for 37. And it goes from 8,500 square foot lot sizes down to about 6. This is the property in question. To orient yourself, you can see a road, a dirt road that kind of cuts through that southern tail of the property. That's the remainder or remnant of Newell Street. That's important as well. That road currently serves a single-family residential as well as the rear to Red Electric and some of their business activities towards the rear of that property. Red Electric is the property immediately to the west of the highlighted area in red. Obviously, you can see 17A and Heatley running north and south for 17A and then east and west for Heatley. The zoning is R2, so again, 8,500 square foot lots, they could do it by right. Nothing that, as long as they meet all the land development regulations and zoning ordinances, they're off and running. Again, the only thing we're waiting on is some roadway coordination design with Berkeley County. It's surrounded by R3, R1s, as you can see, electrical contractor being Red's Electric. Single family R2 is really limited to single family, essentially. I mean, there's some other things in there, but for the most part, it's single family. And you can see those uses all hit the highlights for the most part. This is, again, like I mentioned, the Newell Street is particularly interesting with this property because as far as staff can research back in the 1920s, the right-of-way for Newell ends halfway through the property, highlighted in that dashed area. The roadway, though, is, if you've been back there, continues. And like I said, it does serve the rear to Red Electric as well as a single-family dwelling on this plan to the bottom right. The applicant is looking for the higher density because in negotiating with staff, and there's a myriad of things that the applicant's willing to afford, but one of the things that we're looking at was extending that right-of-way to that plan or to the edge of the property now. The reason why is because we have heard from the development community on increased growth pressures. Obviously, one of my jobs here is to make sure that we get the best connectivity that we can when we develop these neighborhoods and make sure they tie into future neighborhoods and existing neighborhoods where we can. So in working with the developer, they have extended the right-of-way on the new plan. We'll see that in a second. Now, what does that do for the access for the single family? Not much. That's the good news. What does that do for Red's Electric? Obviously, 37 homes on that property will be problematic. It is an industrial type use. They were there first, so what can we do? In talking with the applicant, D.R. Horton, who Davis McNair is here representing D.R. Horton tonight, one of the solutions that was presented was potentially providing Red's Electric a second point of ingress egress on 17A with a parcel they use, but at D.R. Horton's expense. That would help negate their need and their interest in Newell Street to move forward. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the single family would still have that access. It also preserves the town's right and ability to require future developments to connect into this again. So we get that good connectivity where we have multiple points of ingress, egress, travel that takes the pressure off of the corner of Heatley and 17A. So along with the other things that D.R. Horton is proposing to help get that square footage from 12,000, which is R1, down to that 6,000 square foot we're talking about, this is probably the biggest win for all. It helps Red Electric be able to continue to serve our community and be a valuable commercial citizen for us. It helps our future residents not have to deal with truck traffic in the middle of the night, parking on the street, congestion, and obviously it would help future residents around there and current residents be able to ingress, egress on the property and serve as multiple ways to get in and around the area. This is the concept plan that could be approved today. Again, with that coordination, you can see the cul-de-sac kind of stepping off to the right. Heatley Street's going to be on the left-hand side running up and down. 17A, you can see a lot of marshland or wetlands down, hence why this property is not coming off of 17A. Red's Electric, I highlighted there. You can see the easement kind of tail off that cul-de-sac down to the bottom right-hand corner. Again, that's the 30 homes. The conditional zoning, again, allows us for the layman's to give us the negotiating power to work with the developer to get you, the town, and the citizens the best project available. It allows us flexibility to work with them, and they help propose some amenities or some features that the town has always been looking for, but it was developed by right we probably could not get. Again, if it was done by the 30 units of the R2, we probably would not be having the conversation of providing Red's Electric a second entrance. We would not be having a conversation with all the other amenities, including the extension of the right-of-way, perhaps. And I think that's important to know. The other amenities or caveats that the developer has added to is a 20% density bonus of 2,400 square feet reduction for our neighborhood revitalization fund, volunteer fund. A type B buffer yard, that's important. Obviously, I'm sure y'all are acutely aware of the development growth in this area recently in the past couple of years. This will provide an increased buffer between our existing residents along Merrimack and Newell and the new development, right? Obviously, everybody doesn't want to see other people's backyards right of their fence when they've been used to woods. This kind of helps mitigate that a little bit and provides some protection to our existing residents that would otherwise not be there should they develop by right. We're seeing trail and open space and playground. That was on the plan a little bit with the trail, but we'll move forward with that with another conceptual plan here in a second, as well as off-site traffic calming devices. This is a new thing. Staff is looking at a pilot program, so to speak, of what can we do to help the existing neighborhood that sees a lot of cut-through traffic. And the applicant is willing to work with us and kind of nail down what that looks like. We're thinking speed humps, road humps, something of that nature on existing roadways to help kind of mitigate the cut-through traffic that some of our residents are rightfully bringing to our attention. Connectivity, as I mentioned, again, extending the connectivity with the right-of-way for future growth to make sure we can have another point for the area, the neighborhood to 17A, so they're not reliant only on Heatley and 17A. And then on-street parking, as I'm sure we're all aware of. Some of these track builders and some of these densities, you know, your front yard is basically just the driveway. Nobody parks in their garage except for me, I guess. So we're talking about two cars per house in a driveway. On-street parking helps with that. It gets it out of the travel ways of the road, right? So it's dedicated on-street parallel parking. And the residents, anybody could use that. So we're not cramming them all in front of people's houses and bobbing and weaving, and God forbid a kid jump in front of a car because we couldn't see him in between the cars. So this helps provide safety measures for the future development. And again, this reduces all told from 12,000, which was the starting point of conditional zoning, down to 6,700. And remember, the R2 could be 8,500 to start with. So roughly 1,800 square foot reduction in lot size. This is the plan provided by the applicant. You can see the red dot areas are the points of ingress egress. We're connecting Newell to the rest of the neighborhood so they have another way out. We're connecting the right of way down to the bottom right hand corner so they have another way out should the future growth continue the way that we anticipate it. There is that green buffer area to the north of the plan, again, helping provide a little bit of buffer to the existing residents that we've talked to at Planning Commission and we are acutely aware of protecting. The yellow area is that playground. We asked the applicant to provide us an example of what they're looking at for a playground. So something substantial, not just a swing set, not just a jungle gym. And then obviously there's some trails in there, decorative crosswalks, which is again by the ordinance allowed to be considered as part of the reduction in lot size. And then obviously not on here would be the second point of access for Res Electric 17A to kind of avoid avoid the potential for them using Newell Street in the future. Again, as I mentioned, regardless by right, they're allowed to do 30 units today, should everything go forward. At this point, staff has looked at this intersection, particularly 17A and Heatley, and decided that a TIA is going to be regardless, or going to be required regardless. Usually it's 50 trips or threshold, but we went ahead and again, that's a pretty active intersection. We want to make sure that the town is protected as well. As we continue with growth, the by right, we want to make sure we can get everything we can. It will be conducted when the plan's developed. Obviously, choosing which plan is really up to y'all at this point, the 37 of the 30, but any improvements required or recommended by our traffic engineer shall be required to be installed at the developer's cost, regardless of by right or the conditional zoning. This is the kind of rough guess plan I drew a little bit. You can see the Newell Street in red. You can see the right-of-way extends and then the road continues. Obviously, outside of the single family, which would still have access, the applicant and Res Electric, I'm under the impression and aware that they've met, and this is, in theory, a positive solution for all parties involved. Again, I would defer to the applicant and the family that owns Red Electric for the details, but it sounds very promising in staff's opinion. And again, you can see the yellow being a new road and highlight the area that Red Electric in that circle area that they would now have access to and not have to use Newell. That being said, what are we getting with the by right? 30 dwelling units and a TIA, which we would do anyways. What are we getting by conditional zoning? 37 dwelling units. Yes, it is an increase of 7, but we do get that extra additional access for 17A. We get connectivity in the future should the growth continue as we anticipate it will. Off-site traffic calming devices. Again, we don't know exactly what that looked like, but we will, if that's something you're interested in, we'll attack that pretty good. Trail open space in the playground, again, an amenity for the community. Type B buffer yard, we would not be able to require that today with 30 units, but with conditional zoning, the applicant is looking into it and will abide by that. Decorative crosswalks and on-street parking. Again, as I mentioned, with the parking of 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, that's not a lot. Comp plan shows it as single-family residential, so there's no issues there. 4 to 8 dwelling units per acre. This increases, I believe, 1.8 to 2.14. It's in the staff report. I apologize for not knowing those numbers off the top of my head. But it falls in line with the future land use map. You can also see it highlighted here. You see that orange circle being a mixed-use node. It is in harmony with 2 of the land use goals. Encourage new growth in areas that maximize efficient use of existing infrastructure and continued growth patterns of existing boundaries. but we do feel that it is slightly in conflict with one of the goals, which is appropriate compatible with neighboring uses. Obviously, the 37 units is a density that's a little higher than what what we see out there in Mary Mac, Mono Circle, and that. So it's just something to keep in mind. That being said, staff concerns as what is on-street parking. Again, we at the time of the drafting of this PowerPoint slide, we did not see the 8 on the new plan. So we can change that for the next time. Access to the adjacent property has not officially been determined, but it does look promising, as I mentioned. Density may be too much with the recent area, as I mentioned. So staff does recommend that, maybe a reduction in the density would be applicable or beneficial, but again, we would defer to y'all. Town Council's first reading is April 16th tonight. Second reading is scheduled for May 21st, should it go through. Planning Commission did hear this at their March meeting, and they did recommend approval. There was comments on the density, but that was not part of their overall recommendation. I'm available for questions if you have any, and I know the applicant is willing to speak should you give them the opportunity.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'm going to say a couple of things on this. First of all, I believe there's a great deal of concern about this project, just given the 30 homes, the location, the impact to traffic, so on and so forth. But there is a buy right, and I think you explained that very well. But there is a buy right on this property. They can build the 30 homes, and that's where we are. What they're requesting is a 37, and I have concerns. Obviously, with that impact to traffic, I probably have just as many concerns, though, with the impact to the surrounding neighboring property and those people that are needing this for their access to their business, to their home, so on and so forth, and also creating a plan ultimately where what I'm hearing is that road will go through to 17 and potentially alleviate a lot of our traffic off of the Merrimack side, which is a major concern for our neighborhood over there. So I am going to agree myself to the requested ordinance as it is stated, provided certain things before the second reading. One, that we mitigate the impacts of the neighboring property, and we come up with a plan for how we're going to move forward with that. Traffic impact study. Also, I want to see the items as addition, the property condition, as well as the sorry, I lost my place on that. The zoning condition, and I believe it was something with what was the proposal that you put up? That's the other part I wanted to see, to make sure that proposal was staying in place. So if you could back up, just a couple of more. Right there. So the conditional zoning, that was the word I was looking for. Thank you. And so with that said, my motion is to approve the first reading as stated, providing the neighbor property is mitigated and the impacts are added, as well as the traffic impact study and the conditional zoning that we have here.
Second. One question, though, I do have, and since we do have the developer and the property owner in the room, there was mention that both have been in conversation. Are both parties happy with what's going on? Has there been an agreement put in place?
We've discussed a resolution verbally this afternoon, so I'm happy if they are. We haven't finalized anything. We just discussed a resolution for both of us.
Okay. I'd like that put in place too.
And thank you for the developer for being willing to work with them.
I would like that resolution for them to have an agreement in place that is acceptable to both parties for protection of both parties.
Yes, sir.
Prior to the second reading.
Correct.
One thing, I've been getting a lot of feedback from a lot of the people around Merrimack, and as Jay said, and Justin said so well, 30's coming. No matter what we do, 30's coming. So our staff has worked hard to get the best deal out of this that they can. And it's very important to understand that, given a buffer and getting the other things that we have been able to negotiate is huge for that community. Getting a cut-through road to 17 is going to be huge for that part of the town. So, you know, I think it's a good deal, and I'm going to support it as well.
Justin, when you had that drawing or the map up there, and maybe my eyes are bad, but
Site plan?
yeah, was it showing a egress going into Hatley, right there where the GED school driveway is?
Yeah.
But is there a second one that's going to jump into Monitor Circle?
No.
Yes, sir. So Newell continues this way, so they'll terminate Newell at this new road.
Okay.
Which I believe is Monitor.
That's
So
correct.
It'll be a three-way stop here, and then tie into the three-way stop here currently with Mary Mac and Monitor. Yes, sir.
And the thirds in the bottom right.
Thirds in the bottom that could
That's the
possibly
new-
tie into 17.
That's-
Yes, sir. That's the goal. Absolutely.
And we're still looking possibly of helping the traffic on Mary Mac with those speed bumps or something?
Yes, sir. That is part of the
Conditions.
conditions that we're looking into is an in-kind donation by the developer.
Right, that's right.
We have a very rough framework of how that looks like. but
Sure.
They have seemed agreeable to that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yep.
If I may ask one more question, real quick, road-wise, who is the road maintenance on this going to fall to once? Do we know this, answer to this
Berkeley
yet?
County, as it's currently written. That's our intention and Berkeley County has worked with the developer on the 30. It's our anticipation they'll continue with the 37 as well.
Thank you.
So the county will be responsible for that road once it's completed, not the town?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Correct? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is that all? All right, so we have our motions. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. Old business. Ordinance, second reading and public hearing. Consider a zoning map amendment, ZA-24-01, request for approximately 2.2 acres located on Rembrandt C. Dennis Boulevard, TMS 143-09-04-034 and 143-09-04-033 from office and institutional C1 to general commercial C2. Justin?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to recuse myself from this vote.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Second time you all have heard this. This is a C1 property. It's actually two C1 properties adjacent to C2 properties and some R1, I think. The two properties in question are highlighted in the red. You have RC Dennis on the left-hand side. That pink color is the C1. You can see a little bit of C1 further up. You can see the R1 behind the property. You have Sterling Oaks and Stony Landing behind these. Obviously, the property to the north, that big red area, was just granted a special exception for a mini warehouse vehicle use storage. I think that's important to note because I believe that is the intention of the applicants to move forward. Should this get a C2 rezoning, they will seek that special exception. It's a little slightly different use. The property to the north is climate-controlled, internal access only mini warehouse with a very limited amount of vehicle storage, where the applicants, I believe, for this request tonight are seeking more of a boat and trailer parking area. Again, the design and the particulars of the site are usually held with the Board of Zoning Appeals of the special exception. This is not a conditional zoning, so we can't put conditions on it at this point. As I mentioned, most of the properties adjacent to it are C2. You have Marvin's across the street. You have the bowling alley and Oak Mall to the south of that property. A lot of it is vacant, though, and obviously that R2. Office institutional is very limited in small-scale commercial, whether it be a little bit of retail, a little bit of gas stations, smaller restaurants. It's a little different, well, it's vastly different than the C2, which is general commercial, which really runs the gamut of anything we can do. Within the C2 of all the things allowed, and you are approving the C2 tonight, you're not approving the applicant's design or their use, that is going to rest with the Board of Zoning Appeals. Should the zoning go through, all of these uses would then be by right. As we mentioned on the last case, would not require any kind of board hearing or public hearing input. That being said, there are 5 uses that go before the Board of Zoning Appeals should C2 get in place. And again, one of those is mini warehouse outdoor storage. TIA will probably will require at the site plan stage when that is designed. Obviously, that's the key part, to know how many entrances, driveways they need, and the number of parking spaces go into the ITE trip generation study, all that jazz. So that will be required by staff. It is, does not conflict with the 2017 comp plan. C2 and C1 are both designated for the commercial area. And it is along a corridor, auto-oriented commercial uses, principally retail and services uses. You can see the red in area, that's the future land use map, not the zoning, but it does coincide with the requested zoning as well as the current zoning. We do feel it's in harmony with two of the land use policies, encourage new growth patterns in area that maximize efficient use, as well as continued growth of adjacent to existing boundaries. We do feel that it is in conflict with one. Obviously, it is adjacent to R1 residential. Town will promote developments as appropriate. Again, C2, a little bit more intense than C1, but you do see a lot of C2 up and down RC Dennis. So it is really y'all's call on that one. As I mentioned, C2 is wide open. Future land plans of the applicant or allowed by rights may not be aligned with their adjacent residential uses. Again, should y'all grant the C2 and the deal fall through, the zoning will stay in place, and then everything by right is then allowed. There's no guarantee by staff that should this be C2 and the applicant moves forward and doesn't get their special exception, it can't be one of those things on the list. Or they sell. Obviously, the property becomes more valuable, generally speaking. But again, just something to keep in mind. And RC Dennis being 2 lanes is not necessarily considered a major infrastructure at this point, but it's getting there. At that point, staff cautiously recommends approval. Planning Commission concerns were the same, as I mentioned, but they also did recommend approval. Tonight's the second night reading, so it is open for public hearing. I'm available for any questions. I know the applicants are in the room as well, and I'd be happy to answer anything you'll have.
I'll ask a question. Make sure I'm on the same page with you. We're voting on C2, but we're not voting on a special exception. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct?
That's correct.
When would the special exception, would it come back to us later, or that goes to who?
Board of Zoning Appeals.
And if they approve it,
It's approved.
it's approved, they can put many warehouses or whatever in there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Now, I will say, to add to that, Board of Zoning Appeals is very meticulous about the site design. I know that the property adjacent to this went through 2 rounds of Board of Zoning Appeals to make sure they're happy. I think a 7-foot tall masonry fence on 3 sides of the property was agreed to, increased landscape buffers, landscaping along the front of the property. Staff did hear from the applicant this afternoon and did not have a chance to coordinate with them, but they are showing similar roadway plantings to soften the impact. But again, that would all be handled by Board of Zoning Appeals.
Okay.
And that applies to the rear of the property as well, that butts up to Stony Landing?
That would be staff's concerns to the Board of Zoning Appeals if they choose to ignore it, but they're a pretty good board. I feel that they would probably make sure that was followed with what they previously approved as well.
And if I recall correctly, the last time, in our last meeting when we heard this on the initial reading, and I'll call out the applicant right now, we said we were gonna leave a tree buffer at the rear of the property?
Correct, sir. That is our intent. As of right now, we are actually not intending on cutting down any trees at all. What is currently cleared in the lot is what we're planning on using and leaving all vegetation at the rear of the lot as it is currently.
Okay. No, that's my biggest concern is, of course, how it's gonna appear on the front, but to protect those residents back there on the back.
Staff will make sure those concerns are addressed with Board of Zoning Appeals. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is there anyone from the audience on this particular zoning request that wants to speak? Do I have a motion?
We have that. Got a motion and a second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That passes. All right, we're at our public input. Will be limited to 3 minutes per individual. First up, we have Brandon Ohiser.
He's good. He was one of the property owners.
And Crystal, you're good? Okay. All right, now we're going to go to executive session. Council may take action regarding matters discussed, proposed contractual agreement regarding the intersection improvement at Highway 52 at Fox Bank Boulevard, personal matter pertaining to the Public Service Department, matters regarding mutual aid agreements. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We're in executive session.
Oh.
I thought on the second one, I just let Justin go first before I called for the motion.
All right, do I have a motion to go out of executive session and reconvene to the regular meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? No. I do not have anything to report out of executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
No, I'd like to make a motion to approve the public service
I'm
salary
sorry.
schedule as discussed.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? No.
And I'd like to make a motion to designate the town administrator to sign mutual aid agreements to the benefit of the town.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? That passes. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, I need some work on that. I didn't know I had to say anything coming out. Usually I just shut it down, so.
You do have a lot.
Thank you so much. I always appreciate you.